In the previous video, we recognized that, notwithstanding the value and importance of libraries, funding cuts do happen, that love and moral support don't necessarily carry the day, and that libraries can, in fact, be closed. In the library community, we talk a lot about advocacy, and we've assembled some great talking points and slogans. We talk about the library as the heart of the community, or the crossroads of the university. We say that the library is the preschool child's door to reading and learning. We like to remind people that libraries are about more than just books and journals that go in and out. We present the school library as the way to achieve better standardized test scores, reminding them that, according to research, and in the clear and compact soundbite of the American Association of School Libraries, quote, student achievement is the bottom line. We tweet and blog and email these lines, all of which are perfectly true, into a busy and preoccupied world, and we hope some of it will take root. We're making a big mistake, though, if we assume that these slogans and gestures are going to safeguard the future of libraries and librarianship. They are simply promotional communications. In the marketing business, as Ken Haycock says, this scattershot approach is referred to as spray and pray, a phrase that marketers borrowed from the military. That is, send out as many communications as possible and hope that they'll take root somewhere. It doesn't work in marketing, and it's not going to work for us and our communities either. It's not focused, it's not strategic, and it doesn't build relationships with the people in the community who make the decisions about libraries or influence those who do. Too often, when it counts, when a library needs budget support to stay open or to provide relevant new services or to rebuild or renovate, or when a government policy is proposed that's going to damage the rights of our members, we're right back on our heels and we go into emergency advocacy mode with another one of those stop the cuts, save the library campaigns. By then, it's usually too late to prevent the legislation, to prevent the serious reductions, or to prevent the closings. The librarians are not at the table where these decisions are made. And, as the old expression goes, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Or worse, the libraries are actually invisible when the decisions are made that would prevent the emergency in the first place. So, it is essential, therefore, for us to distinguish carefully between simply promoting our cause and being effective, strategic advocates. Now, this brings me to the sometimes tedious business of definitions, but it's a necessary one so that we can be clear about what we mean by advocacy and other terms that are sometimes used as synonyms for advocacy. And I'm going to use the definitions of my colleagues Pat Cavell and Ken Haycock here. So promotion. Promotion is saying, this is what we are, this is what we do, here's how to get it, and when and where, and furthermore, we're wonderful. It's not asking, it's telling. Information on a library's hours of service or electronic services, for example, is an example of promotional information that's publicized through brochures and websites and so on. Most library websites are really promotional communications, although they actually have the potential to be a great deal more. A marketing approach, in contrast, begins with questions. Questions like, what are your needs and preferences, and how should we change to meet those needs? And, by the way, what are you prepared to pay, directly or indirectly, as, for example, through tax dollars or university tuition? For example, on the issue of a library's hours of service, a marketing approach would include surveys of the population and analysis of patterns of existing use to ascertain the needs and preferences of the community served. Advocacy is related to both promotion and marketing, but an advocate is generally seeking to influence an issue. We are all familiar with advocates in the environment and in healthcare. Although many tend to see advocates as protesters, the truly successful advocates are patiently and carefully building relationships and understandings out there with the people who make decisions and the people who influence them. They make the case that their cause is going to advance the real priorities of decision makers. We could say then that they are marketing an issue. Often advocacy, like marketing, plays out over many years. In fact, advocacy can include years of setbacks, times of invisibility, even occasions of ridicule. But when we ask if advocates matter over time, we have only to look at issues like secondhand smoke exposure and gay rights. Advocacy for the education of girls and women is becoming a much more prominent approach to justice, to health, and to prosperity worldwide, and women's rights are now increasingly accepted as human rights. That's advocacy. In librarianship, we are usually advocates for funds, for policies, or for partnerships or relationships. Typically, in library advocacy, we are positioning libraries as assets in our society's agenda or our parent organization's agenda or priorities. We are saying to decision makers that what we have to offer is going to advance their priorities with that particular community. To governments eager to strengthen the knowledge-based economy, we can make an excellent case as library advocates that libraries advance learning and facilitate knowledge creation and the creativity that are essential to the economy. To universities wishing to attract and retain top caliber faculty, we can make the case that the academic library's collections and services are material to that aim. To hospitals eager to improve quality of treatment and care, we can ensure that they have an understanding about the impact of medical librarians on diagnosis. To city governments for whom the safety and engagement of teens is a priority, we can demonstrate the relevance and value of public libraries in that goal. Sometimes advocates are objecting to something. However, more often than not, it's too late. So protest advocacy is not in itself a focus of this course. Instead, our focus is going to be on creating the understandings and relationships proactively and as a way of life so that we do not have to establish relevance and value in the midst of a crisis. Lobbying is really a special case of advocacy. It involves influencing views and decisions of legislators and those who advise legislators. So we make the case in the public interest for the widest possible availability of the human record. We are advocates for readers and students and researchers. We are advocates for a balanced approach to copyright, to governments, and to international bodies of governments that deal with intellectual property. Successful advocacy is about effecting change, and it does take time. It takes time because, as the evidence shows, and we will see in this course, it is rooted in relationships of credibility and trust. And neither credibility nor trust happen casually or overnight. Both require knowledge and skill in communication and passion and, yes, some courage. The evidence of what works supports our taking this approach to library advocacy. So, to review and recap our assumptions, great libraries are transformative. Great libraries and great librarians are all about the advancement of communities and connections, and their taproots are in communities, though of course they certainly do have collections. It's all but impossible for advocates to succeed in advocating the advancement of unresponsive or ineffective libraries. Librarianship in any age, in any community, or with any technology still rests on timeless values. Libraries exist in an increasingly competitive environment, competition for funds, for policy, and for attention. In view of this competition, the work of library advocates is not only essential, but also urgent. Successful advocacy is not, however, a short-term protest activity, but a long-term process of building relationships and understandings strategically. And advocacy is distinct from promotion, marketing, and lobbying, though it is related to all three. This wraps up this introductory session. Next time, we're going to be focusing on perceptions of libraries and librarians and the implications of these perceptions for our advocacy. Bye for now.